What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 33 of the Hustling Sideways podcast. I'm Alan Halas. I'm a music writer.
I'm Jim Love, and I am a keynote and motivational speaker.
And it is the first time that we have been in this room in quite some time.
About a month. But Alan always yells at me for giving the behind the scenes of like, you know, we messed this and whatever, but you were the one that brought it up. So it's been about a month. It's been a hot month. Literally we were like, when was the last time we walked in here? And things have changed. So you can see us right now, which is new. And that is fantastic. Alan went out and bought a TV on the show's budget, you know, from our sponsorships and
the many non-existing
sponsorships. It's been great. So thank you. Shout out to all of our non-existing sponsors and for providing us with this TV. But really cool. And we get to have an opportunity to use it with a very special guest. But this is like, I'm a little thrown off at first, but then I'm like, I'm going to just talk to myself in the camera and see what happens. But it's nice. We're adding new dimensions each time. We started doing videos. Now we're going to do where you can actually watch us and do like behind the scenes. You could see Alan do his like chair swivel. Yep. You can see him and be like, dude, just like shut up, like cut it off. Every time. Yeah. Typically when I get outrageous, but it's great. Yeah.
Put it this way. The last time that we uploaded an episode, we uploaded a video this morning and you had a winter hat on.
I did. Yeah.
And now I'm wearing shorts. So that's how far we've come.
Things have changed. Milwaukee is now, I think it's 78 degrees as we sit here.
Yes.
And the sun stays hotter past 5:30 p.m. So
and there's a snowstorm on Thursday.
We're going to be good. Too. Yeah. That's gotta love this place. But yeah, we're excited. Ellen and I are both summer guys. I'm assuming you're a summer guy.
Absolutely,
yeah. And we're really pumped to get into it. But without further ado, we have an actual episode to get into, and we're just really excited for it. So I want to welcome on a gentleman who I actually just was connected with very recently by one of our last two podcast guests. Try and say that a couple times, but Larry Kaufman. And this is Peter Velardi. And Peter is the CEO of ReferMeIQ, and he's also a private equity investor. So Peter, welcome to, private equity consultant is what I meant to say. I don't know why I said investor, that was not it. Welcome to Hustling Sideways, and this is your applause button that we haven't gotten.
Well, thank you. Great to be here with you guys. Great to be here on your first kind of video thing. It's great to see you guys. I like your movement. I like the tone of the whole thing. Very happy to be here. And yes, I also invest in private equity. So you were correct. So no big deal at all. And it's very nice to be with you both tonight and your audience.
Excellent. Peter, where are you calling us from today?
I'm in Midtown Atlanta.
All right.
Wow. Yeah. So
is that another state to the list that we've?
No, Erica Needleman was from Atlanta.
Okay, so you're the
second person from Atlanta. So
hot Atlanta, as they call it. Yes, it is warm. It's 85 today, and unlike the Northeast and the North, once we get into our weather, it kind of stays there. I am a Northeast transplant, so I can appreciate that it takes a few starts and stops to get you guys into that warm streak, which you guys seem to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. We enjoy it sometimes too much, but yes, Hotlanta was the thing that she said a lot, and it was really funny. So I can see where that comes from. But Peter, tell us a little bit about sort of where your career is at right now, a little bit of your journey, maybe your family, a couple facts about you as we jump into it.
Yeah, happy to. So let's see. I was born in Columbus, Ohio, so I kind of started with those Midwest values that you guys know so well. Then really grew up in Westport, Connecticut. My dad at that point went from being kind of the office boy to a company to being a sales guy. And we moved to Connecticut, and we grew up there and lived there for quite some time. And at that point, it was this little farm town that kind of grew up to be this bedroom community of New York. And I saw success all over, big homes and boats and people that came from nothing to everything, or so I would thought. So I very early on was fascinated with people, success, cause and effect. The point that I used to fish a lot, and I used to stop off in the backyards of some of these big homes, whether it was a trout stream or on the sound where I'd fish for striped bass and bluefish, and I'd meet some of the people who own these homes, and I'd actually interview them because I was fascinated with it. At the same time, while all that was going on, long story short, I kind of watched my dad go from sweeping floors while going to NYU in New York to becoming sales manager. And he was with the same company and retired in 45 years with the same company, going kind of the corporate route, a firm called VF, or Vanity Fair Mills, which was women's intimate apparel. So my dad used to always joke that he spent his career with his hands in ladies' underwear, which was truth, because that's what he did. One of the things that fascinated me back then was my first fashion show when I was 8 years old in New York, which was eye-opening to say the least as a kid.
Imagine.
Yeah, but so my upbringing was really around great family values, achievement, not quite knowing what caused it, not quite knowing who was happy, who wasn't happy, but I was just fascinated and kind of a student of success and leadership. Decided to piece that together eventually and go to Boston University School of Business, really pretty possessed to become a consultant for McKinsey. I kind of liked the idea of being a problem solver and being a consultant. Right out of college, I decided to sell life insurance for 2 years, kind of school of hard knocks. I planned to pay for my MBA, my PhD, and go on to become this consultant at McKinsey. Lo and behold, that's not what I did, which is often the case, as I'm sure your listeners know. And I fell in love, which was back then the financial advisory planning industry, which was just beginning to take off. The whole idea of wealth management going into financial advisory. So I looked for a company that did that. I found a sleepy company out of Minneapolis, not too far from you guys, called IDS, was bought by American Express, became Ameriprise Financial, and I built a career there, 25 years. And that was a great run. I started out as a financial advisor, loved doing that. But I got turned on by two things. I got turned on first by leadership. I love to make a difference, and I can tell some stories as to why, but I found that I could make a difference in the lives of 300 clients, which was great. Or I could make a difference in the lives of 300 clients times 10 advisors, times 100 advisors, times thousands of advisors. So I felt like I could just make more of a difference that way and enjoyed leading people. So I kind of moved up the food chain. I always liked the fact that it felt very entrepreneurial most of the time, where I can kind of build my businesses within a business. So that's what I did. I kind of viewed Ameriprise back then to be my private equity company funding my teams and my companies within a business. So I would go to my boss at the time and I'd say things like, what would it take for me to build an organization in your organization bigger than yours? And then what could that look like? And could you help me do that? Would that be good for you? And would it be good for the company? So I did that. Last 10 years, I was a senior VP, ran all of our national distribution, 5,000 plus advisors. At the same time, I was super passionate around not making cold calls because I had done so much of that. And so I just was really grateful to have met like the guru of the industry around referrals, you know, the mindset, what to say, how to say it, systems, the whole thing. So I said, hey, can I split business with you for 2 years until you teach me what you know? And it only took a year. And so I became like the referral guy. So my gig was really just, okay, if you can lead people and influence behavior and recruit and train and hire and develop the right people, that was great. And then if I could teach them to do it through referrals, instead of making 1,000 cold calls a day, you can teach them to make 5 cold calls a week or 5 calls a week because they're working on referrals. So my gig was really what I used to tell people. I don't want to just hire and train you to make a lot of money and have a good business. I want to train you to have a great life, because that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you have a great life. So I did that and enjoyed a lot of success doing that, enjoyed the job a lot. 25 years there doing it. And then it began to feel like, I'm sure other groups, it became a really big business, and it was great that it did. But I was really itching to kind of start my own thing and do my exercise of my entrepreneurial muscles. So I retired from that world, guys, 15 years ago to do just that. So I did private equity and M&A consulting, leadership consulting. I kind of learned quickly that small and medium-sized companies were constrained by 2 things. One was capital and the other was leadership. And so if I could help them solve for those 2 things, good things would happen. I got paid on equity in their companies. So I was able to kind of ride the tide with them. I kind of put my comp on the line saying, I don't need the cash flow, but I want to participate in your success if I can play a small role in it, experience some liquidation events with some of my best friends, some of my, colleagues from the past that also did what I was doing. It was a blast. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, I'm helping other people build their businesses and participate in it. I said, you know what, I'd like to kind of do that myself. And so I said, what space do I want to maybe jump in and exploit? And I said, hey, how about referrals? Has anybody created any technology that makes it easy for people to get referrals?
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And that's really what this whole thing is based on at ReferMeIQ, is the simple idea that everybody wants to build a referral-based business, right? And for good, and we all know why, right? We know it's the number one way consumers want to learn about us. It's the best lead source by 400% for a business. And more importantly, everybody wants to make a difference by referring people to great resources. Mm-hmm. It's part of what we all love to do as humans. So I said, well, what's the problem when 91% would refer if asked, but less than 10% of producers, salespeople, CPAs, attorneys, financial advisors, insurance agents, less than 10% even have a system to ask. So I learned that it's just hard. It was hard for us to train people to do it. And it's hard for a business to do it. It takes emotional competence, takes skill. We all have this baggage that makes us human, that holds us back from doing it. And I said, well, does anybody create a technology to make that easier? Nobody had. Nobody took a behavioral approach. So we created a company that basically solves the problem for the first time at the cause, and actually conducts the behaviors that humans should, but we can't always do, can't get ourselves to do. And so that's been really, really fun. And we built a nice business taking care of small business owners, insurance agents, financial advisors, CPAs, attorneys. Lastly, while doing all of that, a lot of the financial advisors that myself and my 3 partners in a private equity consulting firm came to us and said, while you're helping us with our referral system, we're in the last third of our career. Can you help us find the best strategic partner with an acquisition with private equity to help kind of take out and de-risk our practice? So the demand was so high, we started a little company called JPTD Partners. And that's been really fun because each of those 2 businesses complement each other. A lot of our partners and advisors become referral clients for ReferMeIQ and vice versa. And it just gives me another outlet to make a difference in the lives of people that I've helped them build a great career. So it's very satisfying on both ends. And other than that, we live in Atlanta, married 32 years as of Thursday, 3 great, thank you, 3 great adult kids, 2 of which live in this area. One's out in Utah, living the dream out there. We split our time between our lake house an hour north and city life and cement life here. And I've got way too many hobbies and passions to even list. So that's me in a 10-minute nutshell, guys.
Like
nice. So the one thing that I noticed that is the common thread through everything that you've kind of described about your career and is create. It seems like no matter what you are creating something, whether it's within your own business or within a larger business to kind of create your own team and make that your business. Or obviously creating, different opportunities for yourself and for, to eventually create this company. Do you feel like you're kind of at your freest when you're able to really just go out and create your own thing, even if it's working for someone else at the time?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right, Alan, because when I look back on my career, the times when I felt in control to create is when I've always been the happiest. And frankly, the last few years working for a big Fortune 5 company, I felt less that way. And that was my sign to get out. But, I've always believed in, this no entitlement mindset, that anything I have or get to participate in life, I must first create. So I've always tried to put myself in a position and advised others to be in a position, whether you're in a big company, small company, your own company, it doesn't make a difference. You can feel and be entrepreneurial anywhere you are. But you've got to feel like you can cause the effects and the outcomes you want. And so creation is always the way to do it. Whether it's create a company, create a system, create a software, create synergies, create a network, whatever it is, you have to create it, because once you do, you get to make more of a difference that way. And that's what's important to me. So absolutely.
That's great. So I know you mentioned, how much you are passionate about leadership, and I am too. And so I'm always curious, folks that, have a passion about that type of topic. Was there like a couple of moments in your life, either negative or positive, that were leadership based, where you're like, okay, this is really what I don't want to do, or this is really how I do want to operate? Because I have some in my mind of like negative, experiences of leadership that made me more passionate about it, to be like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to be the opposite of that guy. I want to be better. Or did you have someone like a mentor that was really, really, motivated you and gave you some tangible ways to be a better leader? Or how did that leadership passion begin for you?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. And to me, the most powerful leadership lessons are on both sides of that, right? So on the positive side, I was very fortunate to have a dad that was a great leader. So he was just great to observe in terms of how he influenced the family, community, friends, the company, going from, an office boy that, was hired to sweep the floors of the company. And he got the job because my grandmother made him wear a suit for a street, for a guy who sweeps floors. And then he actually retired the CEO of the company. So to kind of watch that whole thing happen, and hear the stories and hear what he did, and the adversity he faced, and the influence and the complexity and the layering, to observe that firsthand as somebody who was fascinated with success and leadership was about as good as it gets, guys. So I was very fortunate to be exposed to that. I was also, especially back in the early, IDS, American Express, and Ameriprise days, I was exposed to some phenomenal leadership, with models and systems and philosophies and values. And it was, again, it was like me being a kid in a candy store. And we had these amazing conferences with, the Tony Robbins of the world and all the speakers, and, there's 100 of them. And I used to buy their tapes and listen to them in my car. So I was just fascinated with just consuming knowledge and information. But then what I learned quickly is how overwhelming that was. It's like trying to take a drink from a fire hose. So then what I began to do I kept saying to myself, is there a way to create systems? CDs back in the day, where in any leadership situation, there's a model, there's a system that you can plug into your head and just do it and see really good outcomes. So I became a student of all of those things, whether it was sales or leadership or anything else. So yes, on the positive end, great role models, great systems. I had to have the appetite to learn it. I had every cassette tape series, 8 tracks back in the day, CDs after that I'd plug in cars and do that stuff. But your other point is just as good, Jim, and that is, I learned as much from the bad leaders, from the ineffective leaders, maybe even more. And I had a good handful of those that led me, or I observed, and I saw, the negative impact on people's lives, on entities, on the community. And all that led to kind of a breakthrough at some point in that path. I can't pinpoint exactly when it was, but I'd say it was in the first third of my career, where somebody gave a speech. And I think I would credit this to a guy named Doug Lennox out of Minneapolis, who ran our field force back then. He said something that just absolutely blew me away. He said, let me ask you a question. Is what we do in life, is what we observe in others affect what we think about and what we do about what we think about? And the answer is sure. What we observe in others, what they say, what they do, it does impact our mindset. It does impact our actions. Would you guys agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
No question.
Yeah, right. And so then question two is, and if that's true, is that person influencing us, whether they're conscious of it or we're conscious of it? And the answer is yes. And then he would say, well, if we define leadership as influence, good or bad, right, then wouldn't it be better to be good at it? So if you're intentional about it, and if you intend to make a positive difference in people's lives, which I believe most people do, and if they do, there's a reason. If you intend to have positive influence, then wouldn't it make sense to become better at it and learn how to do it?
Yeah.
And so then I said, wow, I've got to, I'm not just going to be anointed to lead all these people. I had, close to 10,000 people in my organization at some point. It's like, I've got this massive responsibility to do the right thing, teach them the right thing, and to help them have great lives. I might as well get good at it. And that's when I became even more committed to be a student. And then a big part of what I did in that organization and then as a consultant was leadership development, because I learned that it does matter. You can invest in leaders. It's about selecting the right ones, but then there's a lot you can develop in people to help them build those influencing skills, whether as a financial advisor influencing a client to make good choices about their money, or somebody who led a team to influence their team in the best way. And you can't do that unless you're constantly trying to improve yourself. So I am as much today still a student. I mean, my appetite, guys, for podcasts like yours is insane. I listen to podcasts all the time. In fact, my wife and I go back and forth to the lake house. There's always a podcast on one way there, whether it's health, biohacking, leadership, money, anything. So yeah, I've really seen both sides of it, and would prefer to be decent at it than not to be.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, it's so true. Like I love that, leaders have influence, everyone has influence. And so we're all called to be. I think oftentimes people have leadership in their head as like, you have to be the top dog, you have to be like at the head of something. And leadership is culture, and it's a cube next to you. And it's the way that people treat each other. And that's like, I lead a team now. And I think there's like this sense of, like, I just kind of give them acceptance to do their thing. Like, I'm not like, we're a team, I know I'm obviously, you report to me, but like, I'm not going to sit here and demand things from you. Like, let's do it together. Let's learn together. And I think people feel that creativity and that freedom to go and grow. And it's really, it's just, there's like small things to do, not even like a large thing, but a very small, like one way to say it versus another way. But I know you're going to say
absolutely.
something.
Yeah. Well, a couple things is one, I very much relate to, Peter's story of like relating to or learning from not only, just your work environment, but everything in general. You kind of absorb a little bit here and there. I'm a podcast junkie too, as well. But I do pick up, things from that world, from hearing around them. But I also pick up from, just like you said, the good leaders as well as the bad leaders. And I think that is something that, if you can recognize when something is going wrong, maybe for you as an employee, or you as a maybe, or you can see that somebody that you're leading, something they're reacting negatively to it. If you can make that change and recognize that, like, the world is yours. You know what I mean? Like, because there's so much to like saying, okay, well, this doesn't work for me, in your main job, let's say, you say, this doesn't work for me, and you know that it doesn't work for you, and that there are other coworkers or somebody that's upset by, or just, it just doesn't work for them. Right. If you can recognize that and then say, well, now I'm in that position of leadership, and say, well, what about that didn't they like? And change around that, immediately you're going to connect with that person better. Because you realize what the one thing is that they did wrong, that person did wrong, that just rubbed you the wrong way, or wasn't the way that you work, or whatever. So being able to change that and see that and make those changes, I think, is huge. Speaking of, though, we should move on to, kind of what you're doing now as well, with ReferMeIQ. So Peter, how did this kind of get started, and did it come out of a bad leader and saying, okay, we got to change from that?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I do want to come back to what you said, though, real quick, though, if I could. There's two things that jumped out when I just heard you guys talk. One is Well, why leadership? Why should people choose to lead to begin with, right? And like you said, it's not like this hierarchy of you're the boss and that's why you should do it. And I've always thought about two things. One is for anybody that wants to make a difference and get leverage in making a difference, you almost have to choose leadership, right? You have to work through others to get any kind of a scale, whether it's ReferMeIQ, which I promise I'll get to in a second. But the other is not just to make a difference. It's also because it's so hard to do well that leadership is scarce. Great leadership is scarce, which means that if there's always a demand for great leadership and yet the supply is limited always, then people that can do it well simply out earn and out wealth the people that don't. So there's a magnificent reason to get involved, but if you can become decent at it and even above average at it, there's all sorts of rewards of that. You feel great, you made a difference, but also that. And then to both your point, leadership is so misunderstood, right? It's not like you do this and why, right? In fact, the three things that I always think about, and you guys probably do it naturally, I can almost tell, is that when I say there's a leadership opportunity, what goes through my mind, do I lead, do I follow, or do I get out of the way? And all three of those are leadership, right? It's not just the lead piece. There's certain times when the best influence you could have is literally to get out of the way. That's especially true of like A players. It's like, let them run, get stuff out of their way, but get out of the way. You can do more harm sometimes than do good.
Exactly. So, I have a small saying: leaders follow leaders. It's like
exactly.
That's what and if we need to do that, that's the way. That's what you have to go with contextually what's appropriate in the situation, and good leaders recognize that. I totally agree.
Exactly. And the way, Alan, that same kind of concept led to ReferMeIQ is I've always looked to zig when everybody else zags. So I've always looked to exploit kind of, the old Gretzky, where the puck is going, not where things are at now. So part of why I got in leadership is that there was a massive void. Back in the day, nobody wanted to lead because you can make so much by being a producer. So it was like, gosh, there's this big demand for somebody to lead at Ameriprise. There wasn't a lot of people back in the day doing it. And the people that did it weren't really that great. So it was an exploitable opportunity. I said, if I can become decent at this, I can make a difference and do it. Well, I found the same thing to be true of the whole referral space, because I said, has anybody created technology to help solve the referral problem? And there was lots of so-called technology out there. But when I peeled away the onion, it was all about things that didn't matter. It was about things like build a community and let people connect naturally. Well, people don't do that. They don't connect naturally. Something has to actually be a catalyst to make that happen. There's also all this content stuff where people put out all sorts of content and with really good messaging to a bunch of strangers, hoping they raise their hand and lead to referrals. That didn't work. So, what I saw in the marketplace was a lot of overwhelming technology that nobody really used, or all these big CRMs that tried to say they were referral platforms, but they really weren't. And most people were overwhelmed by them because they were so big. So I said, nobody's created, I looked at the space and I didn't want to say it too loud, but nobody had created like an assassin piece of technology that did 5 things. One is it actually asked all the relationships that people have for referrals in an authentic, personal way using technology. The number one way people want to learn about you and me or any business today, number one is email, believe it or not, and number 2 is text. Face-to-face is way down on the list. And more often than not, when people don't have skill, a face-to-face ask for referral deteriorates into this kind of, awkward exchange between 2 people. It's like, if you think you might know somebody, Alan, perhaps you can introduce me if you're okay with it. And so the first behavior that has to happen is we have all these relationships. You spend a life and a career to build these relationships, clients, your network, people you've marketed to but haven't converted clients. How do we make sure that something is asking for them for referrals, personal, authentic way, consistently over time? So we can check off that box, right? Just like we have these, I'm sure you guys know a lot of people that you wish you had been more in touch with, but you feel guilty because you haven't been, right? And it's like, if we all had a coffee meeting with 100% of our network and people we care about, who care about us, we wouldn't need to do anything else in our businesses. That's all we'd have to do. But we don't do that because we don't extend ourselves and have a system to do it. So first, we've got to ask people consistently for referrals. Second is we have to motivate them and incent them to refer. People will refer 50% more people if there's an incentive built in there in some way. If we do those two things and get a referral, the third thing I think is the hardest. The third thing is that we've got to help that person make a proper introduction to transfer the trust. So Jim, if you refer Alan to me, at best what goes on there, I may say, Jim, when you see Alan at the music studios some night, can you say some nice things about me? Right. And you say yes, just like you did. Right. But then you go to the music studio and the last thing on your mind is introducing me. You want to do what you do. Right. So you don't do it. And then the problem becomes the fourth thing is that if I can facilitate a good introduction and Alan's my referral, I've got to get Alan interested in me and my business before I call him, because the reality is nobody does that. Mostly I call Alan, this is Peter Velardi from blah, 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 company. Who are you? Oh, I was referred to you by Jim. He's a really good guy. Yeah, he is. But what's this all about? And this is what the conversation feels like. Instead, what I want is the opposite. I want Alan to know enough about me. I want Alan to have taken a quiz about my business and about his needs so that he wants me to contact him before I contact him. So the 5 behaviors are ask, incent, transfer the trust, get the referral interested prior to a contact. And then the 5th is to create a system where once Alan raises his hand and says, please contact me for a meeting, I've got to create a conversion path for Alan to become a really good client. So I said that's it. Those are the 5 things that have to happen. Is any technology solving that? No. So that's what we created. And so we created a technology, we created an MVP to start with, tried it out with financial advisors. It worked, expanded to insurance agents, sales reps, small business owners, attorneys, CPAs, and so on and so on. And we keep every quarter we do a new release to upgrade it with the feedback from our users. And we're just having a blast. We work with one person, one user of our software up to big organizations that have hundreds, if not thousands, that want or use our software. So that's kind of what happened. It was just a void in the marketplace. We came in, we integrate with all the software up there, but we're the one that people actually use because it's totally set and forget. Once they come in and set up the system, we either do it all for them or it can take an hour if you do it yourself. Once that happens, it's all set and forget. So it doesn't take a lot of time. We just make it super easy for everybody. And then last thing I'll say is, like Larry, who's a gem of a guy. Larry has referred me to a bunch of people, and man, does he do it right. He takes the time, and it's like, but it does take time. So if you were to refer me to Alan, Jim, it might take you 15 minutes to do it right, maybe a half an hour, right? You got to get, the email address is Alan meet Velardi, Velardi meet Alan. Velardi's a good guy. Here's why. Alan's a good guy. Here's why. Here's what Alan does. Here's what Velardi does. This is why I think you guys should get together. And that's ×1, right? Yeah. That's a hassle. Instead, with ReferMeIQ, all Larry would have to do is put Alan's first name, last name, and email address, push a button, and an email will go directly from him to Alan, properly introducing me with a link to the assets I want him to see, with a quiz for him to take that will, when he takes the quiz, he'll basically say, I need this guy, Velardi. Larry transferred the trust. Please contact me. And so that didn't exist, and that's what we built.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Really,
and it's, I mean, just the idea of taking that from thought to, going live with it. I'm sure there's a lot there. I'm sure there's a lot of pushback that you had from people initially saying, well, what is this? Is this LinkedIn? Is this, is this some other referring? I actually don't know a ton of referring sites.
Just roll with LinkedIn.
But you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure people were like, okay, but then the more you explain it, I was thinking about, we've done a bonus episode previously on networking and how when you talk, when you go into a networking event, how you just kind of assume like there's this very cold, awkward exchange of like,
always.
so what do you do?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like where you
Yeah,
just kind of, you talk to somebody, but you guys both have end goals in mind. You both have business end goals in mind. How is this person going to help me? How can I help this person, etc. And many times it's one-sided and it's really, what is this person going to do for me?
Yeah.
So this sounds like this is more of a, like, we can create something mutual here that's going to benefit both of you, and you're going to know each other on a much better level than just simply, hey, here's this person. We talked for 5 minutes over coffee, and then we went on to the next person in the cycle kind of thing. You know, you're looking to create.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Alan, with all of that. And, you know, what makes this interesting is exactly what you said. You've got all these humans running around the world, trying to connect with each other, trying to find ways of helping each other, but there aren't really great systems. LinkedIn is fantastic, and you can play in that system. But what always struck me is this kind of two ponds we can all fish in, right? And I love to fish, so I always use fishing analogies. But we could fish in the stranger pond and do all the stuff that companies spend millions on, right? We can do all the outreach, content, email campaigns, all this stuff to a bunch of strangers, hoping that some percentage of them open it, click on it, and go down the path to conversion, right? And we can spend X amount per lead on doing that at tremendous time, energy, and cost. Or we can fish in the relationship pond where we already are credible. We already have a personal introduction. If you know 300 people and each of those 300 people know 300 people in their network, that's 90,000 people, just one introduction away, that you just need a system to make those connections. So it's so much easier than what we used to do if you have a system. And even like your networking event, it's like today, you know, the whole thing, and we can extend the awkwardness to be even when you get a business card from each other, right? If you happen to have one, right? You get the card, you know, do you want me to call you? Should I call you? And you kind of leave and you have like these piles of cards from these events. And you're like, now what do I do? Do I send them an email? Do I text them? What the heck do I do? There you go, right? Yeah, I have a whole drawer behind me in this bag. I think I've got 1,000 cards, right?
There's an ace of spades in there somewhere.
Right. Yeah, there's an ace of spades. There's a joker in there, right? He's like, you know, I want to get out. But like in our system, all you have to do is say, hey, I don't want to take much of your time, Alan. Can I just have your first name, last name, and email address? And you put that into your ReferMeIQ on your smartphone. And then you go back to your office and you'll enter a campaign automatically pre-designed to drip on you every 2 weeks or month. And the first one might be, it was great to meet you at the X event, you know, and it's already pre-sequenced. That's all you have to do. You don't have to do anything else. So that's an example of networking improved to do things like that for sure.
I have to imagine, I know that you had mentioned, you know, when you first started about like how you're really gratified by making an impact, you know, on a lot of people and spreading that impact. And just based on like the sheer numbers of how quickly this technology can work and how many people can potentially be linked together that can help each other, that has to be a really gratifying thing for you, just to like watch all of that happen and know that the thing that you made can potentially be connecting people together for something of value to both of them. Like that's the biggest takeaway I have of like, I could, you know, I'm sure it's a passion project for you, and all of those experiences led up to this being a thing that by you creating it and you using, you know, the freedom that you had to do that, now people are utilizing it to better their lives and to make more authentic and personal connections that will help both of them. And that's, I mean, that's it. I gotta imagine that's like the dream.
Yeah, you know, it is. And we just want to do more and more of it. We want like everybody to use our software. We want millions of people to use our software, because all it really does, you know, when it comes down to is it connects to humans to make a difference in each other's lives, whether it's something you're trying to sell and somebody buy, or a network where you're trying to figure out, how can I help you? How can you help me? But it's, you know, today more than ever, people are just struggling with so much noise out there. People are struggling more than ever to connect with other people. You know, we are better off today than we ever have been, and yet happiness is at an all-time low. And then you take what's gone on the last 2 years with COVID, and there's such a universal need for people to connect. Just think how great you feel when you connect somebody, a friend or family or colleague, to a great resource and they thank you for it. Great restaurant, you know, great car dealer. I've got this great mechanic that works on my car. I've got this oldie but goodie car, this hot, this sports car. I've got this like genius guy that knows my car, knows cars like it. And he's like one of a kind in the world. It's like the other guys told me that the parts didn't exist. He found me a place that would rebuild my part for a fraction of the cost. So, you can't imagine how valuable this guy is. Well, I turned him on to a really good friend of mine that owns a car like mine where we used to live. And the guy was so grateful. He's like, thank you. I've been looking for the man in this. And it's like, so, I didn't make anything doing it. I don't need to make anything. It just felt really good to make that connection. I think most people that I know were like that. I think you guys are like that too.
Yeah. It does feel good. I mean, I could think of now, like people, if I'm like, if I'm in a room, it's like, okay, that person needs to know that person, like just knowing what their passions are, or interests are. And then
I do this all the time with people where I'm like, I'll be listening to somebody, and let's say in the music space, I'm at a show and somebody says, yeah, I really wish that I had someone to do our show flyers. And I know artists, and I'm like, you should get in touch with this person. You should know, because you guys are kind of doing something that would serve each other.
Yeah.
Or like recently, I actually had an artist that was like, hey, I just need an event space. I was like, I know somebody that has the exact event space that would be perfect for what you're doing. There is power in that. And then you do feel, after that's done, you're like, okay, well, I made that happen.
Yeah, that was good. I go for a walk. I'm like, that was great. I actually think of the Ted Lasso quote when he introduces people together. Congratulations, you just met an awesome person. Like
yes,
that's like my favorite.
He's so good in that, isn't he?
Oh, it's the best. It's the best. Yeah, we can do a whole other podcast about that show.
Absolutely love that show.
Yeah.
So, well, this has been great, but if people want to know more about, ReferMeIQ and what's kind of the next steps, where are you kind of taking things from here? What's your plans?
Yeah, it's really expanding into other markets, expanding the use cases, getting more and more success stories out there so people can kind of see the light. The best way to learn about us is to go right to our website. And it's ReferMeIQ.com. A couple cool things that they can do. If you go up to the top nav, under tools and resources, there's a great quiz. We call it the Refer Me quiz. It occurred to me about 1.5 years ago that most people don't even have a baseline of how referable they even are as a business, and whether what they're doing will lead to both producing referrals, but then converting them to ideal clients. So we actually created a quiz, a survey that takes less than 2 minutes that somebody can take and get a score. And if they score well, great. If they don't score well, there's a link to get in our life, or to actually meet with one of our people for a demo to see how the software works in 15 minutes, to see if it might be useful to them. So that's a great thing to do. We do everything through education. So there's tons of white papers on there, tons of things. But if you just go to the website and play around, you'll be able to see, to me, there isn't anything that's right for everybody. So, we spent a lot of time talking about, if this is you, you should beat down our doors to do this. If this isn't you, then you shouldn't. And, to me, it's really just 3 things. The first is that you need to care enough about yourself and about others that you actually want to play in the referral game, because some people don't. Some people just want to stay in their own world, and that's all they want to do. They don't really want to unleash people to make a difference in other people's lives. So you've got to kind of be the type of person that cares about this. I know you guys do. Larry's that guy. Most people are, that I find, but that's one. Second is you have to have enough experience in your business to have built some relationships. I tell people, have at least 500 people that are your clients, network, marketing contacts you've got a good email address for, and maybe cell phone, because it works in text as well. But you need at least some critical mass. It's not for the person who is right out of college, knows 3 friends of the parents, and that's about it. And you got your friends in school that, are just trying to do the same thing you're doing. It's really for somebody who has a business. And then the third thing is, we can't get blood out of a rock. So a business needs to be reasonably referable. So if you're referable, you've got a little critical mass of good relationships that trust you, you trust them. And if you care about yourself enough to invest in yourself and care enough about others to help them do that as well, then this thing is a home run for that kind of person.
Awesome. That's a
Awesome.
great breakdown. Well, this has been great, Peter. We really appreciate your time and just a great conversation. I took away a ton. I know leadership development is like my, that's what I speak on. It's one of my favorite things. So I always enjoy hearing that perspective. And we're grateful for it and excited to check it out and hope that people, connect with you. And and what happens if they want to hear more about this podcast?
Well, Jim, I'm glad you asked. If they want to hear more about this podcast, if this is your first time listening, welcome. You can find us wherever you download your podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We are all over the place at Hustling Sideways. You can also find us on Facebook. We're on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. Hustling Sideways. We're all over the place there as well. And that if you have a side hustle of your own and you do want to get in touch with us, you can do that. Send us an email, hustlingsideways@gmail.com.
We check it. We do.
We check
them all, even the spam. We even check the spam.
Yes. So if you do if you want to be on the show, hustlingsideways@gmail.com. And Jim,
keep on hustling.
We'll see you next time.